In 1997, Apple was on the verge of complete financial death. The company was losing hundreds of millions of dollars every quarter. Its product lineup was a cluttered mess, and it was roughly 90 days away from going completely bankrupt. Competitors were writing them off. Michael Dell, the founder of Dell Computers, famously said that if he were running Apple, he would shut it down and give the money back to the shareholders. Today, Apple stands as a multi-trillion-dollar giant, holding massive cash reserves, with the iPhone driving unprecedented corporate revenue. So the question is, how did a company that was 90 days from collapse transform into one of the most valuable businesses in human history? What did Steve Jobs do when he returned to Apple that redefined corporate strategy? And how can you apply those principles to build an enduring brand? To understand how Steve Jobs saved Apple, you first need to understand the fatal trap Apple fell into while he was gone. In 1985, Steve Jobs left Apple after a power struggle with CEO John Sculley. Over the next decade, Apple's new management tried to maximize revenue by launching dozens of different products. They created endless variations of Macintosh computers, printers, scanners, handheld devices like the Newton, and even digital cameras. They assumed that offering something for everyone would capture a bigger market share. Instead, they confused their customers, diluted their brand, and bloated their supply chain. By 1997, Apple had over 40 different product variations on store shelves. Even Apple's own sales team struggled to explain why a customer should buy a Macintosh 1400 instead of a Macintosh 1500. When Steve Jobs returned as CEO in September 1997, he walked into a boardroom, grabbed a marker, and drew a simple 2x2 grid on a whiteboard. On top, he wrote Consumer and Pro. On the side, he wrote Desktop and Portable. He looked at his team and made a bold call. Apple would cut 70% of its product roadmap to focus exclusively on making just 4 extraordinary products. That single decision slashed hundreds of millions of dollars in unnecessary development costs overnight and streamlined operations. In traditional business, growth is often sought through addition, adding features, adding products, targeting new demographics. But Steve Jobs proved that true strategy is not just deciding what to do, it is deciding what not to do. When Apple simplified its product line, competitors like Microsoft, Dell, and HP were competing on specifications. Their ads were filled with technical jargon, megahertz, RAM capacity, hard drive space, and price discounts. Jobs recognized that competing purely on specs is a race to the bottom, because specifications can easily be matched by a competitor next month. Instead of selling specifications, Steve Jobs sold an identity. In 1997, Apple launched the iconic Think Different campaign. The ad didn't focus on computer processors or hard drive space. It featured imagery of visionaries like Albert Einstein, Martin Luther King Jr., and Mahatma Gandhi. The message was clear. Apple wasn't for people who wanted a generic commodity, it was for the innovators and creative thinkers. By shifting the focus from what the product does to who the customer is, Jobs built an emotional connection that competitors couldn't easily replicate. This brings us to Apple's structural advantage, vertical integration. Most tech companies in the 1990s and 2000s followed a horizontal model. Microsoft built the operating system, Intel built processor, Dell assembled the hardware, and retail stores sold the product. Apple chose to own the end-to-end customer experience. They designed their hardware, built their operating system, created software ecosystems like iTunes and the App Store, and eventually opened their own Apple retail stores. When Apple launched the iPod in 2001, it wasn't just a portable music player. It was a complete integrated system. You bought the iPod, plugged it into your Mac, synced it via iTunes, and purchased music seamlessly. By controlling every moving part, Apple delivered a friction-free experience that built a deeply loyal user base. This masterclass in business strategy offers 3 essential lessons. Lesson 1. Focus is about saying no. Many struggling businesses fail not because they lack ideas, but because they spread resources thin across too many initiatives. True focus requires the discipline to say no to good opportunities so you can commit fully to great ones. Lesson 2. Sell values and identity, not just specs. If your product competes solely on price or specifications, you are operating as a commodity. Customers connect with brands that align with their values and identity. Tell your audience what your brand represents and how it fits into their lives. Lesson 3. Control the user experience end-to-end. The companies that manage the complete customer journey build the strongest loyalty. Wherever possible, minimize reliance on third parties that might dilute your customer experience, ensuring every interaction meets your standards. Steve Jobs didn't invent the personal computer, the digital music player, or the touchscreen phone. What he did was simplify complex technology, package it in exceptional design, and control the entire user experience. In a world full of noise and complexity, simplicity remains the ultimate sophistication. If you found value in this case study, please hit the like button and subscribe for more business breakdowns. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.